Iran and the countries around Iran produce about 20% of global oil supply. Russia, meanwhile, produces about 12% of global oil supply. So these are the biggest energy producing regions in the world, and the wars have gravely affected their ability to produce that energy and to ship it anywhere else and to refine it for that matter.
Overnight, the Houthis claimed they struck 2 Saudi tankers in the Red Sea. This image from NASA appearing to show at least 1 ship on fire. All of this pushing oil prices higher once again. Brent crude now topping $100 a barrel.
Oh yeah, you heard that right. Brent crude now topping $100 a barrel. And things are about to get a lot worse because based on the movement of US military assets and a surge of troops into the Middle East, it looks like Trump is looking to escalate the war against Iran, which, doesn't really bode well for the Houthi blockade in the Red Sea. Doesn't bode well when it comes to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. But he's going for it anyway. That's who Trump is. Just totally unhinged, total lunatic. Clearly doesn't care about the health and well-being of his own country and certainly not the global economy. So Tucker Carlson dedicated his latest monologue on this very matter. And I appreciate it so much because something that has driven me crazy, not just during this war, but for years now, is this whole notion of we need to drill more here in the United States to be energy independent. Now, whether or not you think it makes sense to drill more, put that aside. Because what I want to address is the topic of energy independence, which makes no sense when you have a globalized energy market, meaning oil and gas companies sell their product to the highest bidder on the global stage. Unless we nationalize, our oil and gas, you actually really can't do that. I don't know if you guys know this, but we are the top exporter of oil and gas, but we also import a ton of crude. And that's because our refineries here in the United States can only refine a certain type of oil that we can't drill for here in the United States. So we import it from other parts of the world. It is a global economy. There's no such thing as energy independent. We don't have nationalized oil and gas companies, okay? Now, I think we should have a discussion about potentially nationalizing one oil company. And the reason why I think we should do that is because we should have an entity that's hyper-focused on keeping our strategic petroleum reserves full, But anyway, and that way, when we have a crisis like this, it can mitigate wild spikes in energy prices. But, that would actually take strategy planning. We don't have a government that has any interest in that. So getting back to Tucker Carlson, he addresses the already poor conditions we're dealing with when it comes to energy and how much it's gone up in recent weeks and months. And the fact that these wars continue, not just in Iran, but also the Ukraine-Russia war, where Ukraine is hitting some of Russia's oil infrastructure, their refineries and stuff like that. That is causing a really big problem when it comes to the supply of energy on the international stage. Take a look.
This war, combined with the war that we're waging against Russia in Eastern Europe, have completely shut down probably a quarter of the world's energy. And what does that mean? Well, it means poverty and disaster, and almost certainly famine in some places in Africa, because of course, half of all global fertilizer is derived from natural gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It means a readjustment downward of the standard of living of people, certainly in Europe, almost certainly in the United States, and definitely in parts of Asia.
And the mention of fertilizer doesn't get mentioned enough because aside from an energy crisis, what we are playing with here is a food shortage, a global food shortage, because a third of the world's fertilizer also transited through the Strait of Hormuz. And so right now, farmers are having a hard time getting their hands on fertilizer, or it's incredibly expensive because there's limited supply on the market. So, and let me also just quickly note, there are countries that have already been rationing gas, rationing oil, because of the fact that they've been hit even harder than we have due to this war against Iran, due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So with all of that in mind, I want to go to my favorite part of his monologue where he took jabs at the disinformation coming out of the likes of our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Take a look at that.
Take a look at the Secretary of Defense. This is in June. On a Network Sunday show, is asked about energy and the effect of this war on energy. And here's how the Secretary, I beg your pardon, of War responds to the question. Watch.
We have a totally different energy dynamic around the world. By the way energy flows today, the straits will be nowhere near as relevant 1 to 2 years from now. Because of the foresight of President Trump, he's made us energy independent at home. We're a net exporter. Now Venezuela, through our partnerships, now we're killing foreign terrorist leaders who have terrorized the American people. The amount of drugs and gangs that came from
energy
United States of America,
prices are pretty high right now.
It's a huge deal.
So I don't know that the independence is helping
down,
people
and
at the pump.
They are.
There was a very specific point in there, and it was, look, the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. Like, that's measurable. Everybody knows that. It's been closed since April. You kind of can't lie about that. But it doesn't really matter because the Strait of Hormuz is basically becoming irrelevant. Like, really, who cares about the Strait of Hormuz? It's just 20% of global energy. No one really cares because the energy dynamic is changing.
Do you know your brain rot index? No, of course you don't. I didn't either because I didn't know what it was, but turns out you might want to, especially after hearing this. Did you know that the average American checks their phone over 200 times a day? That's about 5 hours of screen time a day on just your phone. Unfortunately, that means your brain is rotting. A little bit, but have no fear. I switched over to Noble Mobile, downloaded their Noble Mobile Life app, and was able to track my own brain rot index. It's 0. No, I'm just kidding. My number was not great, but now that I'm on Noble Mobile, getting way better. It tracks how much you use your phone, how often you pick it up, and even shows you how to save money on your phone bill by using it less. New members can even earn up to $100 cash back for keeping their brain rot index under 100, which means you're very unrot. Okay, so you unlock all that when you join. So download the Noble Mobile Life app today, track your own brain rot index, and learn how you can save money and spend more time doing things that actually bring you joy instead of doom scrolling on social media. Check it out by heading to tyt.com/switch or by downloading the Noble Mobile app. By the way, don't tell Andrew, but if you're on Wi-Fi, you also don't use your data, so you're gonna get money back anyway. tyt.com/switch.
Because we arrested Maduro and his wife and put them in a cell in New York. And so the energy dynamic is changing. So, of course, in real life, it doesn't mean anything because it was spoken by someone who doesn't know anything.
I mean, look, that was a mild criticism, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Pete Hegseth might be the dumbest political figure in the country, maybe even dumber than Trump. And that's just because he's better at articulating his dumb statements doesn't mean that he's smarter. He's so dumb. And I think the thing about Hegseth that's so infuriating is he's both dumb and a liar. And a liar. And that was on full display at the Senate Appropriations hearing this week. Okay, well, putting that aside, that was a statement from Tucker, right? He doesn't know anything. Okay, so what does he need to know? And this is the most important part. What does energy independence actually mean? And is that even possible in our context? Well, he addresses that in the next video.
So pre-war, which is to say on February 27th of this year, about 20 million barrels of oil, not even including LNG, but let's just stick to petroleum, oil. About 20 million barrels per day were moving through the Strait of Hormuz. So that's a huge amount of energy to make up for. How are you going to do that? Well, of course, with Venezuela, which we know from listening to the president has the largest oil reserves in the world. But does it matter? Well, it doesn't matter if the oil's still under the ground. So how much oil is Venezuela exporting now? Well, the good news is the number is up. What's the number? Well, it's a little over 1 million barrels a day. 1 million barrels a day. Now, keep in mind, the Strait of Hormuz allowed 20 million barrels a day to go through before the Trump administration decided to kill the elderly religious leader of Iran. Where do we get the extra 19 million barrels per day to make up for what we've lost in the Strait of Hormuz, which apparently no longer really matters? No hint, because there's no answer.
And he's right about that. No hint, because there's no answer. And this is something that I've been digging into pretty deeply in my research, because I want to know if there is an answer. I want to know if there is some other transit route that can be utilized in order to get the flow of oil and LNG back to where it was. 20 million barrels a day through the Strait of Hormuz is no joke. So how are we going to make up for that? So right now, there is an effort to bypass the Strait of Hormuz with new pipelines that are currently being constructed. Remember that the Houthis also block the Red Sea. So, some of the solutions required passage through the Red Sea. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen unless somehow the US defeats the Houthis, which you would think would be easy to do, right? Except we didn't defeat the Houthis in the Saudi-led war against them, which of course we joined. We caused a freaking famine in Yemen in an effort to defeat the Houthis, and we failed. So that blockade, I think, is going to remain. So how do we make up for the 20 million barrels of oil a day that are no longer transiting through the Strait of Hormuz? So like I said, there are some pipeline projects in the works. Some of them have been sped up in order to, respond to this crisis we're dealing with. The state-owned oil company of Abu Dhabi is accelerating construction of a $3 billion 200-mile pipeline to Fujairah. That pipeline, which will run parallel to an existing one, aims to increase oil supplied to Fujairah by more than 1.2 million barrels a day. Wait, 1.2 million. Okay, all right, so we got to make up for 20 million barrels of oil that we're transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. This is just one project, to be fair. 1.2 million barrels a day, great. The pipeline will be completed soon, by mid-2027. Disaster. There are other projects in the works as well, though, so don't worry. They're just taking too long and will also be insufficient. So the new projects to bypass Hormuz could carry an added 3.8 million barrels of oil a day by the end of next year and 7.3 million barrels per day by the end of 2028. And that's according to analysts over at Goldman Sachs. There is no answer because there is no solution here. There's certainly no solution that would be fast enough and sufficient enough to prevent a global meltdown. Actually, there is one solution: end the war. End the war, please. But that's not going to happen because, as I've repeatedly said on the show today, Trump is moving additional, military assets and troops to the Middle East to escalate the war. We're in a lot of trouble, and it is terrifying to be led by a government full to the brim of people who don't even understand how things work. Pete Hegseth has no idea. Weekend host at Fox News. He had no qualifications to be the Secretary of Defense, yet here we are. We should keep in mind also that when Trump visited President Xi, I believe this was back in May, he was very friendly. And I knew that there was something up. His friendliness was for a strategic purpose. And soon after that, President Xi stopped importing oil into China and instead tapped into China's strategic petroleum reserve, which of course would free up supply of oil in the international market. But the question that remains is what did President Xi get in return? Did he get promises from Trump that the United States won't intervene if China tries to take over Taiwan? Is there something else at play? And by the way, China can't forever avoid importing oil. So in recent days, they ramped up imports again. And then the one other thing that's disastrous that no one's thinking about, no one's talking about, our entire economy right now is based on a bet on AI. Okay, so explain to me what AI development requires. Data centers, right? What do those data centers need? Now, I don't think we should ensure that our entire economy hinges on the development of AI. I think that's a big mistake. But that's an even bigger mistake when you consider the direction we are headed in when it comes to an energy crisis.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.